So, good evening, everybody. Good to see you all. And we're here with Nick Principe and friends to hear and think about and talk about Meher Baba's kindness. And I know Nick has already figured out what he wants to talk about today, but of course, he's open to other things. And we have a question just sitting here waiting for him. So, Diane, why don't you go ahead and bring it up?
So, and
Uh,
also, is there a way to get more light on you? So you
And
don't look like you're in the witness protection program?
Let me
Yeah,
see.
that's better. That's better.
Okay.
Okay. So, we've talked on this, these squares about body pain and what you've been going through, and I have been going through a tremendous, suffering in my body lately. And from what I've heard, Baba said, the more you suffer, the more you get closer to me.
because you think of him all the time. Take this pain away.
Could you speak to that?
Well, I certainly will try. It's not a question of taking the pain away. That I think is not, we can ask him for that, but I think it's better to ask him for the strength to endure it.
Mhm. Very good.
Because
You
why?
rock my world with little twists of looking at things.
You see, why would he give us suffering? And
So,
then we're going to ask him to undo it.
so you said again what? You can't ask him to take it away, but what you can do is
Ask him for the strength to endure it.
the strength to endure it.
Yeah. You know, as a matter of fact, I had heard that when Alaba was going in for surgery and he died on the operating table, the last thing Erich said to him as they were saying goodbye at Mirzad, Erich told him, he said, "Be brave."
Mm.
You know, I mean, there's a lot in that statement. And it's, you know, it's not a question of, oh, Baba will save you or relieve you of the suffering. It's be brave means to go forward and endure.
Yeah, this mute.
And just,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I'm trying to get myself
That's
comfortable
all right.
seated. Yeah, I
Also,
always have a challenge of asking Baba for something in particular, but
yeah,
so that's why it helps when you kind of frame it of what I really want is to be able to endure it.
Mm-hmm. Withstand it.
yeah,
The pain will go away.
Erich used to say everything passes except Baba. So I mean, when I think about it right now, I feel fine. I'm not in any pain now, right this minute. Does that mean tomorrow's going to be pain free? 2 days ago, I couldn't put my shoes on because my feet hurt so badly.
Mm.
I have circulation problems, so my foot swelled up like a football. Just overnight, I woke up and I couldn't walk on it. Now it's fine. And I think my sense is that Baba wants us to rise above thinking about our body. There's a wonderful little prayer that Baba gave. I know it's in print. I am not the body. I am not the mind. I am not this. I am not that. I am nothing but a living lie of that truth that is me. And unless the lie is dead, the truth shall not be.
Mm.
So we're not the body, and yet we want to preserve it. So I think asking Baba for courage, bravery, patience, that's not only good for what we're enduring now, but for what we're going to endure in the future. Who knows what our next birth will be? And
Thank you.
I think also we have to be very careful what we feed our minds. You know, Baba had said way back in the days of the early days at Mehrabad, somebody asked him about diet. And Baba said, enough has been said about diet. He said, it's more important to pay attention to feeding the mind. So every time we even if we just say, if we complain, our brain is hearing what we say. So we're just reinforcing that. You know, and of course, I don't know if you have access to Upasni's discourses, but early on, Upasni said that we should welcome suffering like old friends. Don't chase it away. Welcome it and see what happens.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot because I wouldn't say I've learned to enjoy my suffering, but actually, as Terry said, with the suffering comes more remembrance of Baba.
And suffering has, even we're talking about physical suffering, but inevitably physical suffering is accompanied by mental suffering. And it's, I think they work with each other in some way, and you have to deal with both to find some relief.
Yeah, you're correct. Baba had said that in the East, there's more physical suffering, and in the West, it's more mental. You know, we suffer because our air conditioner doesn't work. You know, people in India suffer because they have no air conditioning.
Mhm.
You know, we suffer if we don't have the right wine to pair with dinner. You know, I mean, I've had friends, and that's absolutely true. And these were Baba people. They would just
Yeah.
get upset because they didn't have the right wine.
Hmm.
That's what I call problems of the rich.
Did you figure it out?
Wait, no.
So, if shall I go on? So there's a book, The Path of Love. It's a collection of talks that Baba gave to Phyllis Frederick, and she put them, at that time they were published in the Awakener magazine. This is a collection of all those, of many of those things from that. Erich had said one time in Mandali Hall, he said, this is the only book any Baba lover ever needs to read. Now, as I thumb through this, pardon me, it's got the prayers, it's got the RTs, it's got and I think that's what Erich was referring to. It's sort of one source for many things. Anyway, as I was going back through this again, because
The
I'm at
title,
that
show
point,
us the cover. The Path of Love.
Okay.
Phyllis
the
Frederick.
path of
right?
love. Yeah. Well, it's just Meher Baba because these are his words, but the Phyllis, and it gives it in the introduction.
Path of Love.
Phyllis, these are from the old Awakener magazine. So as I was going through this, something that's been on my mind a lot recently is imagination. I have a very vivid imagination. And I imagine Baba being with me in my apartment. That's how vivid my imagination is. I can see him walking around. And it's put me in a very strange situation now because if I say that to somebody, it's not because I'm trying to impress somebody that I'm some kind of mystic or elevated person. I'm just using my imagination. Now, I'm going to read one paragraph, if I may. Imagination has a tremendous range and an almost unlimited scope, and man has a very strong imagination. For example, it would not be impossible for a man to imagine a rat having 1,000,000 heads. The whole world is created and carried on by the force of imagination. But in spite of being apparently unlimited, imagination reaches the limit when checked by knowledge itself. By the power of imagination, no man can ever understand or explain the beginningless beginning or the endless end. In other words, eternity is beyond the reach of all imagination, and knowledge is knowledge of eternity. And that is also brought me to think about illusion. And I was chatting with Diane. I actually asked, I have a smartphone and it now has, AI on it. And I actually asked, what did Meher Baba say about imagination and illusion? And it was very interesting because, many words, I think we use them and we don't really know what they mean. We don't have a full grasp of it. And Baba was so particular about what he said that he would spell out words, especially like in God Speaks. He would spell out letter by letter, or using gestures would show the letters. That's how important Baba's words are. And of course, I'm not saying I understand it, but we also have the biblical admonition that the word was made flesh. So the word to me is knowledge. Baba, being all knowledge, became flesh. So what's the difference between illusion and imagination? Illusion, and this is what I gather from trying to find different sources. Illusion is to see something that's not there. It's sort of like the person who is dying of thirst in a desert, and all of a sudden ahead sees an oasis, and as he gets closer to it, there's no oasis. So that's illusion. Imagination is what we live in. That's creation. So that really does exist in imagination. So the table, the chair, the computer, those things exist. And part of the reason why I use my imagination a lot, I asked Erich one time, this is way back 50 years ago. Star Wars had just come out. Did you see Star Wars? You remember all those strange creatures in the bar, all these things from other planets? I asked Erich, I said, how in the world does somebody imagine something like that? Because I couldn't imagine that, but somebody imagined it to create that. And Erich said to me, they imagine it because it already exists. I said, all of those things that we see, gargoyles on buildings, the images of any angels, whatever, what we saw in Star Wars. I said, they exist? He said, yes. And then he said this to me. He said, man cannot imagine anything that God has not already imagined. And when God imagines something, it becomes creation. To me, that's an extraordinarily powerful statement. So for me, I live in imagination. And it's become my friend because I'm limited in mobility. I don't go out very much. So I can't go to the center, but I have Baba with me right here because I imagine him walking around. So I don't feel like I'm missing something. And there's one other story about imagination, which I think is pertinent for this discussion. One of my early trips to India, there were only 6 Westerners there. There was nobody there. I'd walk up on the hill. There was nobody. There was Mansari and Nanakare would take turns. The only thing to do was I read God Speaks in the Samadhi, which you can't do that now, but at that time, I actually sat on the window ledge inside reading God Speaks. It was fine. And when I got tired with that, I'd go visit Mansari or have a cup of tea. Then I'd walk down the hill, then I'd come back up the hill. And Nanakare, I don't know if you knew Nanakare, he had been with Baba in the New Life. He wasn't one of the companions, but he was a Yeswala. He was a school teacher, lived in Andhra, and he did a lot of work for Baba during the New Life. And when he retired, he received permission to live at Mehrabad. So he lived at Mehrabad. Mansari lived at Mehrabad. Not many people were there in those days. I mean, even among the Mandali, there was nobody there. Padri and another fellow Minu, who had been with Sai Baba, not with Sai Baba, with Upasni and with Babajan. And he was an electrical engineer and he lived there. Anyway, they would spell each other, Mansari and Nanakare, at the tomb, and they would just sit for hours and hours, just right outside looking at inside the Samadhi. And I asked Nanakare one day, I said, how do you deal with boredom? He said, come with me. He took me over to the library, handed me a folder. He said, read this. And as he was leaving, he turned to me. He said, the cure for boredom is remembering Baba. But he gave me this 8 by 10 little 2 or 3 page thing to read. And it was a talk given by Harry Kenmore at the Society in New York. And Dr. Kenmore, of course, who was blind, I think everybody knows that, was at this talk, he was explaining how Baba was encouraging him to, he said, make sure you hold on to my Daman. And then what Baba did is he actually took his Daman and put it in Harry's hand. He said, now you make sure you hold on to my Daman. So after the meeting is over and Harry asked if there were any questions, somebody said, well, Dr. Kenmore, it's easy for you because Baba actually did that for you. He said, what about us? We didn't have that experience. Baba didn't put his Daman in our hands. And Dr. Kenmore said, who do you take Meher Baba to be? Said, I take him to be my master and God. He said, do you believe him? He said, yes, I believe what he says. He said, didn't Baba say this was all imagination? He said, yes. Then Harry said, then imagine you're holding Baba's thumb. So that's what has prompted me for 50 years to try to use my imagination for that purpose. And I think now one of the advantages of aging, I have the time to do that.
So imagination is something that has already happened. So there is
Yes.
nothing new for man to come up with because, as you said, God
It
has
already
already done
exists.
that. So then what is it about the people who get cued into the imagination, the artists, just anybody doing something? What makes them cue in?
Well, I don't know that I have any authority to answer that. Because I do not have that kind of knowledge. I can make guesses. Part of it, I think, is what we bring in from previous lifetimes. You know, I think it's very important that we always remember that life is a continuity. It's not just birth and death now. So for instance, Charlie Mills, who we're all familiar with, you know, this brilliant Baba painter, um, who knows what he came in with before? You know, whether, I mean, as far as his spiritual advancement. So I think that's part of it. The other part of it is whether we're using the right side of our brain or the left side of our brain. That's a physiologic thing that is measurable. You know, the right side of the brain is where art is. The left side of the brain is where, um, you know, mathematics, algebra, that's where that resides, is over there. So the two halves of the brain are used differently. Artists are working mostly on the right side of the brain. They're not intellectualizing. You know, when somebody's painting, I mean, it's like, you know, playing guitar. You know, I don't know if you remember, there was probably one of the best guitarists that ever lived was a Spaniard by the name of Segovia. You can find him on YouTube. He never knew anything about music. And you can listen to this man play the most incredible, you know, guitar music you ever heard in your life. And he knew nothing about, he didn't know how to read music, he didn't know how to write music. I believe Baba had said that when you're in the right side of your brain, when you're in the artistic side, that's when inspiration can happen. And that's where certain prayers come from. Why sometimes we all might have a moment where we feel inspired to do something, you know, to call out to Baba, to just praise him, you know, see a beautiful sunset or a sunrise, and you just go, oh, Baba, isn't this gorgeous, Baba? You know, that's almost an inspiration. And I think that's the great artists. That's where it is with them. They're inspired. And the reason why I say about what people bring in with them, many years ago at the center, I was at a meeting and I was sitting next to Kitty Davy. Now, you know who Raphael Rudd was? Raphael Rudd, his parents met Baba. You have films of Baba at the center. You'll see there's one man who's got a baby on his shoulders. That baby is Raphael Rudd. His parents were Harold, and I think her name was Margaret. So Harold Rudd has his son Raphael on his shoulders, and he bends down as he approaches Baba. Baba's sitting there. Baba reaches up and plays with this child's hands and tells his parents, I've searched the universe for you for this child. Now, Harold Rudd, Raphael Rudd, was probably one of the most accomplished harp players that you would ever hear. He played with the Boston, London Philharmonic. He recorded with Pete Townsend. He was just incredible. He died very young, I believe, in an auto accident. So he's playing at the center, and he had written a minuet for Kitty, which is recorded. You can find it, just like an old Elizabethan minuet, and he wrote it for Kitty. And he's playing harp on the stage, and Kitty leans next to me. She's sitting next to me. She leans over and she said, it takes 3 lifetimes of playing harp to play harp this good. So that's what I mean by what we bring in with us. You know, you might take drawing lessons now, and a lot of people do, especially on retirement. They take painting lessons, things like that. And you might not be very good at it now, but now you've already got to start for next birth. Who knows what kind of an artist you'll be if you start, you know, and a lot of people, and it's not just art, a lot of people, when you talk to them, won't they tell you that they always knew they were going to be a doctor or a nurse or a pilot or a fireman, because they had this impulse from birth. It's what they bring with them. But Kitty saying that it takes 3 lifetimes to play harp like that. Who knows that? You know, I never heard anything like that in my entire life. I never thought about it that way. Yeah, I think that, you know, as time goes by, pardon me, the veils drop. The veils that we all have. They drop, and then knowledge begins to come. And it's not new knowledge, it's knowledge that's already been there. Mani said that her father, who had no formal education, I know if you've read the story about Sheriar traveling overland, you know, he used to sit with his father at the Tower of Silence in Iran, where they brought the corpses. I mean, that was his education, was with his father. So now he moves, ends up in Pune. He's married, has a large family. Mani said one morning he got up and he just understood ancient Urdu. And he could, became so good at explaining what this old language meant. She said that even the professors from Deccan College would come and ask him to interpret some of these words. And it's something he already knew. It's not something, knowledge doesn't come in from outside. You know, it can. I mean, Baba can do a flash anytime he wants. It's his game. But I think if we have, as he said, an average of 8,400,000 births, then how many times have he been a doctor, a lawyer, a man, a woman, rich, poor? That's why you remember these things. Yeah, that's why people have certain inclinations from birth. They know what they're going to do. And it's sort of like even when we meet people, we know we knew them before because we have a strong link with them. The mind doesn't have to think about these things. It just reveals itself.
I have,
Right.
um, I don't mean to act like you are the knowledgeable Baba, you are the the Baba Bible, but you do have an incredible amount of wisdom. So I thank you for sharing. And I'm losing my question, but the people who come into the world kind of aimless, kind of the opposite of what you've just described. Did Baba ever say anything towards that?
In New Souls.
I think indirectly.
T-
I think, and this is just my personal interpretation. I Baba, I think, did not have enough time to get into the detail. That's one of the reasons he left the Mandali. And now we have all his books and information and all that. Because Baba, he would not have got his own work done if he spent all his time answering the questions that we asked. When I think about how it was even in Mandali Hall, we would really terrorize the Mandali, and realizing that the same people, I mean, different people were asking the same question every month, and they had to sit there and be patient and explain that. So I think Baba didn't he didn't go to the detail. Upasni did. So I would recommend you can read Upasni's discourses.
Mhm.
Now here's an interesting thing with Upasni. I went to Sakori early trip, and I got 5-volume copy of Upasni's discourses. I had a private room at that time at the old Pilgrim Center. There were other people that had gone on that trip. So we get back and everybody goes to their respective quarters. We have dinner. I go to sleep. The next morning, there's an argument because one fellow who was in a group room, there were 4 beds. He had brought back the copy of the discourses, Upasni's discourses. And one of the people there insisted that he put the discourses outside. He said, "That's not Meher Baba. You can't bring." But Baba said, "You can't go to another master." So, based on that, he actually forced this guy to take the discourses and put them outside the room. So now Bao came in the morning. And of course, everybody gathered around and asked Bao about it. And Bao said, Upasni gave Meher Baba perfect knowledge. Do you think you're going to hear something from Upasni that's wrong? He said it's completely fine to read Upasni's discourses. So in his discourses, which are fascinating, by the way, he explains many things. I'll give you, for instance, I don't remember all the detail, but search it yourself. The purpose of playing cards, that actually has a spiritual origin, a deck of cards. Military funerals. A military funeral, if you ever saw the recording, the video of Kennedy's interment at Arlington, when they led the horse, the boots are put in the stirrups backwards. That has a spiritual connotation.
Hmm.
What's the spiritual angle with playing cards?
That's what I told you. I don't remember the details. I remember
Oh,
reading it, but that was 50 years ago. All I'm saying is that if you're curious about any of that stuff, that's a resource. He also mentioned, here's one that I loved, which I do remember, solitary confinement in prisons. The original solitary confinement was in monasteries. And if a monk, a friar, an aspirant was having trouble and was not behaving appropriately, they would be removed and put in a darkened room until they could see the light. So that's the origin of, it wasn't used as punishment. It was to help somebody develop spiritually. So bearing all that in mind, when you ask about people coming into the world now, if you think in terms, again, as Baba explained about evolution and reincarnation, every soul goes from an animal to a human. Every soul. You don't jump and become God. So if it's your first birth, don't you think you're going to have more animalistic tendencies? And as you progress along, maybe your 1000th birth, you become a little calmer. And without going into the gory details, because I don't want to spoil the evening, way back in the 70s here in Myrtle Beach, there were two men who held up a jewelry store in Myrtle Beach. They ruined a lot of people's lives, and they ended up being killed. I was working in the emergency room. They brought the victims and the perpetrators in. The only way that I could describe this one man is he looked like a pig. His face looked like a pig, the perpetrator. If he had short legs and put his head down, you'd think he was just a pig. That's how. So I remember thinking at that time, it's probably early birth. I don't know that that's true, but I think it's reasonable. And of course, we can think in terms of, I think we all have come across people where we think, my God, they look like they haven't been around very much. And some people just seem to be born with more wisdom or a placid personality. And I think it's just because, like Kitty with the 3 lifetimes of playing harp, you could have lifetimes of being a criminal. And you bring that with you too. So at least that's just my thought about it. I'm not saying I have any, I would put it this way. Erich, by the way, this is one other thing Erich told me about imagination. He said because somebody challenged him and said, Erich, if it's all imagination, what difference does it make? He said, because there's significant use of the imagination and insignificant use of the imagination. He said, if you involve Baba, then that's significant use of the imagination. If you're just imagining, oh, gee, I wonder if I'm going to go have a pizza tomorrow, and you imagine what this pizza is going to look like, and the restaurant you're going to, or whether you're going to get it delivered, that's insignificant. It's not harmful. It's just insignificant. It doesn't mean anything. But it's still imagination. But if you think about anything that involves Baba, so that's why when I think about these things, I try to involve Baba and try to look at what can I find? What did Baba say about this item or this thing or this, tendency or whatever it is? It's not, it doesn't hurt anybody. I don't go out and mistreat people because I look at them and I'm trying to guess what lifetime they're in. No, it's not any of that, but I just know that there are certain places I have to stay away from. There are certain people I have to stay away from. It's either you just get a feeling, and I think now, especially because Baba said that during the Advent, there are millions of souls trying to come in to creation now because Baba's physical presence is here. He said for 100 years and a little more after his death would be as if he was still in the body. So you have these souls that are just really trying to come in. And it's and a lot of these souls I think have lost their bearings. And Baba said that he held his hand like this. He said, the world is like this, and I'm going to do this. He said, the values, he said, I've come to retrue the values of humanity. And he turned his hand like this. That means upside down. And that's what I see going around now is just upside down. Mental illness is in the streets. When I was even through nursing school, we had mental health hospitals. There are none anymore. People that probably do have serious mental issues who need care, they're in the street. That's dangerous for all of us. And that's why I say it behooves us to be very careful about what we do, where we go, who we're with, and I think that's one of the reasons why Baba cautioned us. He said to spend as much time as you can with lovers of God.
So that comment just now really resonated with me because I've been an agnostic most of my life until I came to Baba like 12 years ago. And I have this incredible appetite to be around people talking about Baba, which is so far from who I was. So I'm really interested in if you could even unpack it more. You said the last line was to spend your time with other lovers of God.
Yeah, what is meditation? And I'm not talking about sitting in a corner and chanting Om. That's there, but that's not what Baba asked us to do. Baba explained all about meditation, but there's no place where Baba said anybody should meditate. Okay, what he tells us to do is remember him, to say his name.
Mhm.
So when you do that, it's natural to want to be with other people who are doing the same thing.
You're back.
That's why these Zoom talks are so popular. Why there are so many people now,
Oh God.
because, in the early days, speaking for myself, I could go to India for 3 months and be around a bunch of people. I can't do that now. So for me to talk to other Baba people, most of my friends have passed away.
Mhm.
They're gone. I don't see them. Of course. So for me, being with you folks we're
Have new
talking about
friends.
Baba.
Mhm.
Pardon? Sorry.
You have new
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah, but we're all lovers of God.
Mhm.
So we're spending time together. So that's what it is. You know, you can go on YouTube. I try every day. If you allow for the time difference, there's a live camera feed in the Samadhi.
Mhm.
I try to join every morning, and every 7 in the morning, 7 in the evening. I say the prayers. I stand in my living room looking at the live camera feed in the Samadhi. It's and I imagine that I'm there.
Mhm.
I'm not watching a TV screen. I imagine that I'm there.
Mhm.
So I think that's how we make that practical.
Mhm.
And because we want to feed our mind nourishing food, that's why I think it's important to be talking about Baba, listening to beautiful music. You know, I mean, I go to sleep every night. I have a little cassette, a little CD player in my room, and I listen to Baba music to go to sleep with. You know, it's just it's a wonderful thing to have those last thoughts on your mind
Mhm.
rather than worrying about, you know, what the weather's going to be or whether your sister's going to call you or whatever it is. And I mean, and it should be, you know, I don't know about you folks, but when I was a kid, the prayer that my mother would have us say before we would kneel it on the side of the bed, and the prayer was, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take." It's easier to do if you go to sleep and Baba's on your mind
Mhm.
than if you die while you're sleeping.
You're with Baba.
Well, he said, if you remember me when you breathe your last, you come to me.
Mhm.
But that
So,
I always worried about that because what if you didn't say it? Does that mean you don't go to him?
well, what does it mean in the first place to go to Baba? I asked Bao what that means. And Bao said that it has two meanings. He said the first meaning is that you are freed from the round of births and deaths.
Free from the rounds?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're liberated.
Mhm.
But the second is that you're born into a Baba family.
Mhm.
That also means you come to me. And Baba said, you have to get used to saying my name, otherwise you won't remember me
Mhm.
at the time when you breathe your last.
Mhm.
Now that's a pretty good warning right there. So, you know, remembering Baba, I think takes practice. It takes practice so until it becomes so automatic. And I believe, and I'm sure you must have seen it also, Baba said he also repeats his name internally all the time.
Mhm.
That's you know, Baba. You know, it's sort of it's like a heartbeat.
Mhm. For
So if
breath.
we get used to doing that, then you still can watch television. You can, it's sort of like a mother that's cooking, but she's also hearing the children playing in the next room because you just get tuned into it, you know? So I think Baba's given us little hints and tricks so that we can do that too.
Mhm.
He wants us to remember him. The more we remember him, as he said, you wake me up. He said, I'm sleeping in your heart. And the more we remember him, it's like calling on him. Like, Baba, are you awake?
Yeah.
You know, it's yeah, just involve him, and like I say, you know, when you try to remember him, and naturally we're not gonna, you know, as a matter of fact, there's a little funny story from Adi. I laugh when I think about it because it was just so sweet. Somebody asked Adi whether he said Baba's name all the time. And Adi said, "Oh no, sir, I don't." And they said, "But Baba said to remember me, say my name." He said, "Yes." He said, "But Baba also wants us to love him." He's now, Adi said, "I love my mother very much. Is it necessary for me to go around all day saying Gulmai, Gulmai, Gulmai? I love her." He said, "Once your love is established with Baba, then you don't have to go through the mechanical repetition because that's when it becomes part of your breath." You know, Fred Winterfeld had said one time, the spiritual journey is from here to here. And what I took that to mean is that we hear about Baba, we repeat his name, Baba, 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 but it's here. We have to call out to him from here. And that takes practice and suffering and practicing suffering. Because when we suffer, we call out to him from deep within our being. When it's very easy to repeat Baba's name if you're sitting having a cup of coffee, eating a cookie, you know, Baba, Baba, Baba. It's very nice. You know, it's easy, it's sweet. So it's not there's anything wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. But it's a step in the right direction. But when we suffer, we call out to him from someplace way deep in our being. And that's when he wakes up. That's when he's there with us. The first time that I had Baba's physical presence in my imagination, I was going through a tremendous amount of suffering. It was emotional suffering.
Mhm.
And I called out to Baba from such a place that I didn't recognize my own voice. I was driving, I was going to work. The minute that happened, Baba was sitting in the car next to me.
Mm.
Now, after the suffering passed, which was about 2 weeks, then Baba's physical presence was not there anymore. That's when I started imagining, because I wasn't calling out to him anymore because of the depth, but I knew that I could call out to him. I knew I could imagine. And you put all these pieces together. It's like, to me, it's like a puzzle. You know, you take random pieces, you put them on the table, and eventually you're going to have a picture.
Mhm.
And I think Bob has given us many different hints about how to love him, how to remember him, and would do whatever suits your personality.
You really know how to fill an hour, sir.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it is so much my pleasure. Baba has uh, it really is one of the highlights of my life to be able to do this. It's the only thing that's worth talking about. All the rest of it is just, uh, you know, insignificant use of the imagination, and I do enough of that. So this is significant. This is important. So it's my pleasure, and I thank him for being able to organize to do all this, because he is the doer behind all this.
You said such lovely things tonight, Nick. And it's, I love that you're focusing at the end about just remembering Baba. He's in our hearts.
Mhm.
Imagine we see him. It's like a meditation. Um, and I think we all do. Maybe we aren't even aware of it all the time.
I think that's part of what our job is for each other, is to remind each other.
Mhm.
I just had a friend visit. He was here in Myrtle Beach. I spent some time with him. I mean, he has wonderful stories. He and I had traveled to India together. But he's given one talk. Robin Vogel recorded him, and I told him, I said, man, you need to tell more of your stories. But so I'm trying to encourage as many people as possible. Keep a pencil and paper with you and jot down little things, little memories. Just thoughts. It doesn't even, it's not even a memory. What's it? What is it? What inspires you? Even the youngsters now who really don't have any memory, really to speak of in this birth. But just remind them. Chat with them, ask them what they think, what they feel. I mean, youngsters. Baba had said this was the new humanity. These youngsters that are coming in they're going to be our teachers.
Yep.
You will watch out for the young ones. For sure.
Yeah, right.
Thank
Yeah,
you again, Nick. This has been a lovely evening together.
that's my
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you so
Have
much,
a
lady.
good rest of the evening, everybody.
We'll see you
You
next
too.
time.
Jai Baba.
Okay,
Baba
bye.
bless you all.